Hello, everyone, and welcome to GitHub Copilot Can Do That. We're absolutely thrilled to have you join us for this exciting session. My name is Pradnya Bhukan, and I'll be your technical support for today. Before we dive in, let's make sure that you're set up for a smooth and enjoyable experience. So, if you have any questions, use the Q&A feature in our toolbar to submit them anytime during the session, and we will address them at the end. You can use the chat feature to share your comments and reactions. I'll be here throughout the session, so if you run into any technical issues, you can just feel free to message me. Now let's talk about what's ahead. This is going to be a hands-on workshop. It's my honor to introduce our speaker, Kedasha Kerr, a talented developer advocate who is passionate about empowering developers to unlock their full potential. With her deep knowledge in GitHub Copilot, Kedasha is here to guide us through its cutting edge features and reveal how this AI powered coding assistant can transform our development workflows. Let's give a warm welcome to Kedasha Kerr.
Hi everyone. Hi. I am Kedasha. I'm so excited to be here with you today to talk all things GitHub Copilot. I'm here in sunny or cloudy and very cold DC today. Super stoked to be here with you today, and we have a lot to go through, so I'm just going to dive right in. But today is a very hands-on session, and I would love for you to join me as we build out features with GitHub Copilot. It looks like my camera is gone. So let me just share my screen. Before joining, I was having some issues with the camera. So let me share my screen and we can dig right in. Let's see. Awesome. So today we're going to talk through all things GitHub Copilot, and we're going to go through what it is, how it works, how you can use it, and we're going to spend some time installing the tool. And I do have a coupon for you today for you to use with GitHub Copilot if you've never used it before. So let's get right in, right? So today we're going to go over what is GitHub Copilot, what it's good for. We're going to do some live demonstrations. So we're going to install the tool, sign up for it, and start using it in Visual Studio Code. What is going on with my system all of a sudden? Awesome. There's going to be time for review and Q&A, and I'll also be sharing some resources with you. Now, I'm Kedasha, like I said before, and I'm Jamaican, and I work at GitHub as a developer advocate. So this means that I specialize in educating developers about GitHub and all its essential tools and features. So if you ever have any questions about GitHub, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to help you and jump on a call, as I often do. I also do create technical content online on Insta, TikTok, LinkedIn, here on LinkedIn, and also sometimes YouTube for GitHub. And I really am committed to learning and teaching in public, but today is not about me. So let's get right into GitHub Copilot. So GitHub Copilot is your AI pair programmer that helps you to code faster. That is what the tool is. That is what the definition that we've been going with over the past years that it launched. But it's so much more than just an AI pair programmer. GitHub Copilot can help you with boilerplate code. It can help you generate commit messages. It can help you in your CLI or your terminal with shell commands and git commands and other scripting commands. It can also help you on github.com understand a repository, so get up to speed with the repository. It can help you study. I used it to study some machine learning concepts earlier this year when I was taking my course. It's really good at helping you understanding and remembering things that you often forget. It's really good at writing unit tests and so more. Now with GitHub Copilot, you can use it in your preferred editors. So it's available in Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, NeoVim, and JetBrains IDEs. You can also use it with so many different programming languages, from Python to Ruby to JavaScript to Java to C++ to C#, etc., and so on. It really is a comprehensive dev tool that's here to help you go a bit faster in your work. Now, It's also the most used AI developer tool in our industry right now, with over 1 million developers using the tool across 36,000 organizations. And what does this mean for you? This means that now is the perfect time, now is the right time, now is the time to start learning how to use the tool as a part of your everyday development environment, because it's only going to get, more widespread, and it's only going to have a lot more features. And so before all the other features come out, it's going to be really good for you to know how to use the essential features of GitHub Copilot, right? So that's all the talking I have for you today. I want to dive into some demonstration. So I would love for you to go to this repository that I have here. If you go to gh.io/createherfest, it will take you to the repository that I have linked here on the page, or shown here on the page. And this repository is what we're going to be working in today. And so today, our goal is going to be to sign up, if you haven't, to install it in your editor, and to build a machine learning model, and to also build an API using GitHub Copilot, and also, seeing a lot of its features in play. So I'm going to pause this for a minute and see the comments. Thank you so much for sharing. And just let me know in the comments if you're at the repo and what you're doing, because I also want to go through how you can install GitHub Copilot. And so right now I am on my GitHub repository right here, and hopefully you're there with me. Let me know in the comments if you're there and if I can go on. All right. Okay, looks good. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is, on your GitHub profile, I want you to click on your photo in the upper right-hand corner, and I want you to go to your Copilot. Now, if you've never used GitHub Copilot, this is how you're going to sign up for it. So I want you to right-click and click Open in New Tab. And actually, I'm just going to switch my profiles really quickly. So let me actually get multiple. So let me switch my profile really quickly to one that I can go through this with you. Okay, so go to your Copilot, and you should see a page that says like sign up or register if you've never registered before. And so I want you to click that sign up button. And when you do, I want you to enter this coupon code that I have here for you to use today. Are you there? I'm going to send that in the chat. And so click sign up for GitHub Copilot, enter the coupon code, come back here and let me know when you've done it. And once you've done it, you should see a page that looks similar to this, maybe not an enterprise phrasing, but maybe like the individual side of phrasing. And once you do that, I'm going to go through this repository with you. Additionally, you also need to have a code editor installed on your machine. I'm using Visual Studio Code today, and with your GitHub Copilot subscription and also Visual Studio Code, you should be able to follow along with me today as we build out a model and also an API in our time today. Just drop a comment so I know that you're following, and when I can move on. Just checking the comments, which is why I'm looking this way. Copilot started and ready to take off. Amazing. All right, so once you signed up for GitHub Copilot, with that coupon, it shouldn't take long. It's a pretty fast and a pretty seamless process. I want you to go back to this repository because we're going to clone it so we can start working in it. I'm just going to switch back to Lady Kerr here. Cool. So once you have GitHub Copilot installed, I want you to go to this repository and click code. Go to HTTPS, SSH, or if the GitHub CLI is installed in your machine, you can choose whichever option you want to use to clone the repository. Click the link, open up your terminal, right? And git clone and paste the link, right? I already have this cloned on my machine from earlier. So I'm all ready to go, but just let me know where you are in the process. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep going. I don't see any comments coming in, so I'm going to presume that all is well. If all is not well, just let me know in the comments, right? Okay, so once you've signed up for GitHub Copilot with a coupon, and once you've cloned the repository, I want you to open up that repository in Visual Studio Code or whatever IDE you're using. I'm using VS Code today, so hopefully you'll be using VS Code along with me. And once you install Copilot, I want you to go to the extensions link here. And then I want you to search for GitHub Copilot. And you should see this one pop up here. Click on it, and you should see an install button. Click on the install button. And then it's going to ask you to sign into GitHub, get yourself authenticated, just to make sure that you have a GitHub Copilot license. And once you do that, you should be rerouted to the editor, and you'll be good to go to follow along in today's workshop. I know that was fast. Please let me know in the comments if you're not following along or if I'm going too fast. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going. So once you sign up, you can clone the repository, open it up in your editor. Once you open up your editor, search for GitHub Copilot in the extension marketplace and install it. Authenticate yourself, sign into GitHub, just to validate or verify that you have a Copilot license, and then come back to the repository on your machine, and we can get started, right? Just checking the comments as I go so I don't miss anything. Okay, nothing coming in. Awesome. So once you install GitHub Copilot and once you're all authenticated, the first thing I want you to do is to open up the file or the folder here that says workshop solution. There's no real solution in there, but this is the folder that we'll be working in. So I want you to cd into workshop solution, and I also want you to go into the server file, right? /server.
Hey Kedasha, there is someone in the Q&A section asking about where to exactly place the coupon code.
Oh, you should be prompted for a coupon code somewhere. Hold on, let me stop sharing so I can check. 1 second. Let me check my other account. If you've used GitHub Copilot before, like the 30 days free trial, you may not be able to use the coupon code that I provided with you because you've already exhausted the free tier. But when you click get started, and then you can say start free trial, you're gonna see a screen. So let me actually go back here and show you what I'm looking at. So share screen, entire screen, this one, share. Cool. So when you click get started with GitHub Copilot, you're gonna see start with a free trial. Then you're gonna come on this page. You're gonna just select this one, get access to GitHub Copilot, enter all your information. And once you've entered this information, let's do this test. I'm just going to write testing on all these lines. I may have to choose a country though. Let's say I'm in Connecticut. 0, 0. I don't know if that's a real zip code. Okay. Oh, the zip code is incorrect. Let's go to... What is it? 2001? I don't remember. 60607, and that's going to be Illinois. The address is unresolved. You tell me I have to enter a legit address. Don't want to do that on camera. Hold on. The validation on here is really good, huh? Okay. You're right. I don't see where to enter the coupon. I don't see where to enter the coupon because I haven't used my free trial. It's a really good question. When I tested it earlier, I was able to do that, but now I'm not. Very interesting. Live debugging can sometimes be difficult. I'm not sure how to place the coupon or where to place it.
And do you think we should enter the payment information first and then go ahead, or what?
Yeah. If you enter the payment and just cancel it immediately. Immediately after the workshop, you should be all good. That's really good feedback. I'll be sure to bring that back to the team about where to enter that coupon. I didn't see the option today. We usually do see it. There
Okay.
usually is an option. It looks like the camera is back. Okay, cool. Okay, so once you've installed it and you clone the repository, we're going to go back to our terminals and you're going to install the extension, sign in, and all that jazz, right? Once you've done that, yes, this is how you know it's live. It's 100% live. It's 100% live. I'm not even kidding. Okay, so once you've done that, then we're going to come back here, right? And we're going to go into the workshop solution and the server folder, right? But we're going to start with this Jupyter notebook here, because one thing that you may not know that you can do with GitHub Copilot is machine learning stuff, data science stuff. You can all do it all with GitHub Copilot. But let's see. Cool, no questions. Let's keep going. So the first thing is I have some pre-existing or pre-written code here that you can see. Just gonna blow this up a little bit. I don't know why this keeps happening. Okay. I have some pre-existing code here that you can see, and this is essentially doing some data cleaning. So I'm just gonna go ahead and run this. I have this flights.csv data that's coming from the FAA, or the Federal Aviation Administration, which tells us like real information or real data about flight delays and the airports that have the most flight delays within 15 minutes, right? And so I'm just going to run all these cells, and then the meat of the matter that we're going to do today is to build a machine learning model that tells us whether or not our flight will be delayed, right, based on this data. So right now I'm just going to go through and I'm going to clean this. I'm going to normalize the data, and normalizing the data essentially means I'm going to remove any outliers and any of those other like unneeded, unnecessary things from the data. Then I'm going to display the cleaned data, right? And something that you can do, I actually created all this information with GitHub Copilot, so you can also interact with your data live. So this is going to spit out a bar chart for me that will tell me that the number of flights with arrival delay greater than 15 minutes by airline. Now let's go to the meat of the matter. This is going to come back as important soon. So what I want to do is, and what I would like you to do with me is to create a model to predict the likelihood of a flight being delayed based on the day of the week and the arrival airport. I want to use logistic regression, which is a type of machine learning model. And I want to split the data into training and testing sets, which is very typical when you're training a model and when you're doing data modeling. I want to train the model, fit the model, and calculate the accuracy score, and then return that accuracy score, because that accuracy score is what's going to tell us whether or not our flight will be delayed. And so I added these comments into this code block because this is how GitHub Copilot is going to help me to get this work done. So when I hit return, it's going to start doing some imports. And so this right here, this gray text right here is what we like to call ghost text. And so if I hover over it, you'll notice that I can, go between the two suggestions that it has. And when I hit tab on my keyboard, I can accept that suggestion. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do enter. And now it's going to select the features and variables from the data. And so right here, you see this and this is coming right from our data set here. You can see day of the week, and you can see destination airport ID. So this means that GitHub Copilot now has the context of that data set from the Jupyter Notebook, which is very good because that means we can go ahead and do a lot of data modeling with our information. And so now we're going to split the data into training and testing data sets. And if you've ever done or ever seen any type of model building, you will know that it's following the appropriate steps that it needs to do. Now it's going to create the model, that logistic regression model. It's going to fit the model. And now it's going to calculate the accuracy score and give us that accuracy score right here. And so whenever I run this cell, I'm expecting to get an output of the accuracy score. But here you see I have an error. So let's see what we have. Cannot import name accuracy from sklearn metrics. I think this should be like accuracy score, actually. Yeah, that one doesn't exist. So let's have it redo this part. No. Interesting. I think I tapped too quickly up here. But now we have an output of 0.80324, etc. But this is essentially telling us that the model is 80% confident in its accuracy. So it's like 80% confident that of whatever it's coming up with. Essentially, it's 80% confident in its prediction that your flight will be delayed or your flight will not be delayed. Now, I want to actually test out this model to see if my flight will be delayed to Chicago on a random Monday. And so again, I have this comment here, and when I tab down, it's going to tell me, okay, I need to also get the airport ID. You do, very intuitive. And now it's going to do a calculation of the odds of the flight being delayed. And right here, it's using the predict probability method. It's also going in and inserting the airport ID and doing some calculations there. Now, if I run this cell, I actually want to print this out. I got 23%. So there's a 23% chance that my flight will be delayed. So let's say I come into this notebook and I have no idea what's going on. I can actually highlight this entire section and I can open up GitHub Copilot chat, which is also installed whenever you install GitHub Copilot. And I can say, can you tell me what the highlighted code means? And I'm expecting it to give me a detailed explanation of what this code means, but it looks like it's not grabbing that context here. Let's try inline chat. All right, and so now you see inline chat is telling me that, oh, it's still going. Awesome. So now it's telling me that the code is essentially getting the airport ID for Chicago. We have a data frame with pandas. It's getting the destination city, and it's telling us what iLock at index O means, which selects the first element from the destination airport ID column. Then it's going to calculate the odds of the flight being delayed on a Monday by doing some model prediction using the model that we built earlier. And then it's going to give us a very nice summary of what this entire code block means. I think that's pretty cool. And I'm kind of going fast here, not explaining every line of code because I want to show you all the things that you can do with GitHub Copilot today. But it's essentially saying that the code is calculating the odds of a flight being delayed on a Monday using the model that we built earlier using the predict probability method, right? And so I can do the same thing for Los Angeles. Firstly, it's going to get the airport ID, and then it's going to calculate the odds of the flight being delayed from that airport and return an accuracy score for us right here. So it looks like none of our flights will be delayed because it's saying it's 24% confident that the flight won't be delayed, which is very interesting. Every time I do this demo, I get something completely different in terms of the model building and also the predictions. And so that's interesting. Okay, and so now that we have a model, we can actually export it and we can use it to build an API. And so right here, I want to build an API route that returns the list of airports and their respective IDs. And so I'm going to ask GitHub Copilot to do that for me here. So I'm telling it to get the unique column values for the origin airport and the ID and export that to a CSV file. And so here you see it's getting the origin and then it's getting the origin airport ID. Let me just validate that that's what that is. You have the origin and origin ID, origin airport name is what that should be. So let's update that. Right? So we can get the name and the ID. And now it's going to export it into a CSV file. When I run this line, I'm expecting to get an output of the unique origin airports.csv right here that I can now use in my API route /airport. Awesome. And then I can also export the model, which I've already done. I'm using the package pickle to export the model, and then Copilot is going to dump that right here into a pickle file that we can then unpack and use to build our API. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Otherwise, we're going to keep going, right? And so now you can see that you can actually do machine learning work and data science work with GitHub Copilot. I think that's pretty cool. I also love that I can use just a Jupyter notebook right in Visual Studio Code. It makes it so much more user-friendly to me because I don't typically use Jupyter notebooks, but this year I've been deep in the notebooks. All right, so now that we have our model, now that we finished doing all this jazz, I'm gonna have you go to the server and you're gonna open up this app.py here. And within app.py, you'll notice that I have a pretty basic Flask server here where I have loaded the model from the pickle file, and I have a pretty basic route here that says, let's build an API. So just move that. So let's run Flask and then test our API. So we're going to copy this here. We're going to open, I'm using Bruno, but you can use, Postman or Insomnia or another API client to get this done. And if I test the route, we see that it's alive, it's working. So let's build an API, right? Awesome. And so if you've never used Python before, you will definitely want to ensure that you have Python installed on your machine. If you have a Mac, it is pre-installed, but I would recommend that you go to the Python docs and install the most recent one. And then you would also need to create a virtual environment that you need to use to get all the things operating. And so if you've never created a virtual environment before, that's what your bestie, I'm going to call it your bestie because it's now going to be your bestie. That's what your bestie GitHub Copilot is here for. So you can come in here and you can say, how do I create a virtual environment? Right? And I'm expecting it to give you an output of how you can do that. And it's going to give you code that you can directly run in your terminal. So it's giving me the instruction on how to create a virtual environment in Visual Studio Code with the command palette. But I want to create a virtual environment in my terminal so we can refine our prompt by asking it a more specific question. So I'm going to be a lot more specific. And this often happens when you're working with AI coding tools and even LLMs. Sometimes you ask it a very general question and it's just like, is this what you meant? This is the environment you're in. And you're like, not quite. And so you just need to do a little more refinement of your question to get the output that you want. And so here I'm going to actually use the new model picker to use Claude to answer this question instead of GPT-4o. I'm going to send my request. Awesome. I'm expecting like source, viv env. I'm expecting Python 3. Interesting. Okay, so initially it was guessing that I wanted to use the Visual Studio Code extension, but that's not what I wanted to do. That's interesting. I wonder if that's a recent update. But anyway, this is exactly what I'm looking for, right? Took us a minute to get there, but we landed, okay? And so if you have any virtual environments running, or if you're not sure, you can always run deactivate first. But to create a virtual environment, if you've never used Python or Flask before, you would run python/m viv env to create the virtual environment. And this is the name of the folder that the virtual environment will live in. Then you're going to source it or activate the virtual environment. And then you would install all your packages in that environment that you would like to use. And that's how you can ask questions with GitHub Copilot chat. Now, let's go back to our server because it is running and also time is going. So we verified that the server is running. And so now I want to build an API using the model that we've already exported, right? So I already have it loaded here. So I'm going to start a new chat. And when I start a new chat, that allows me to have like a clean slate in terms of the context or the information I'm going to provide with GitHub Copilot. So let me just grab my prompt. I have it over here. So I want to create a route that returns the prediction of the flight delays using the model that we just built. And I'm telling GitHub Copilot that the model accepts 2 parameters, the day of the week and the airport ID, right? So I wanted to split the predictions. I wanted to store the first value as the prediction certainty or that prediction percentage, removing the first character. And I also wanted to give me the second value, which is the delayed percent, and return the prediction as a JSON object. So I'm still going to use Claude for this. And it has the context right here of my openapp.py. If I don't want it to look at that file, I can also always click this button to hide it. I can send this on. Actually go to here. And you'll see that it gave me a detailed step-by-step plan. Then it gave me a nicely formatted code block. And then it gave me the exact link or route that I need to use to make a prediction. I wonder, or to make a request. I wonder if this is from the CSV file. I'm not sure because I didn't provide it with that CSV file. That's very interesting if it would be. But let's take a look at this code, right? So within this code block, you'll notice a few things. So it gave us the entire route, but also you have these nice little guys up here. So this is the apply an editor button. And whenever you use the apply an editor button, it allows you to have GitHub Copilot apply the changes into your currently open file instead of you having to go in there and copy and paste and figure out where to put the updates. This is also the insert at cursor button. And so with this one, wherever your cursor is, when you click this, that's where the code, the generated code is going to go. You have the copy button, so you can just copy the entire code block and be on your way. Why does this keep popping up? Then you have these drop downs where if you have a terminal command, for example, you can just pop that command right into your terminal, or you can insert this code block into a new file. So if I do this, for example, you'll see that it created a brand new file that I can now save in my repository and be on my way. But because I don't want to do that, I actually want to use this apply in editor button. So when I click this, you'll see what happens. We have a pop-up here that says applying the code block. And here, GitHub Copilot nicely applied the changes for me right here, so I don't have to figure out where to put it. So let's accept these changes and actually go through the code a bit to make sure everything's squared away. So we're importing JSONify and request as expected. We have the predict route as a get method. Great. Day, airport, integer, which is good. And now we're making a prediction. And so right here, it's using the predict method. And I actually wanted to use the predict probability method. And also, it's splitting the process prediction values here. And I believe I need this to be a string. And I need it to split at the space. But let me run this and see if anything happens. Then it's going to return this JSON object, the certainty, the delayed percentage, which is exactly what I asked it to do, right? I also like how it added these nice comments that tells me exactly what's going on. Okay, so let's go back into Bruno. And I do have this route already set up. So I have the day parameter and I have the airport parameter. And this airport number is just coming from our data. Let me look at this one. Our data here. So I just chose a random airport and I popped it in here as the airport number. We have the route, the predict route. We have the URL. And now if we make a request, we're probably going to get an error, right? And so we have an error. And that's because of this split method here. That's on this line that I noticed earlier. This one, prediction.split. So a NumPy array doesn't have a split method. But here's what I'm going to do. So what you can do is you can ask GitHub Copilot to explain errors for you. So I can copy this error message, and I'm pretty sure it's also in my terminal output. Yep. So I can come here and I can actually just copy this entire thing. I can right click, select Copilot, and do Copilot explain. I can also do a Copilot terminal inline chat, but let's just do the explain process because that's going to just pop into the Copilot chat terminal. And so here you see it's explaining exactly what's going on in that error message, which is very helpful. So it says, based on the traceback, it appears that there's an issue with splitting the prediction variable. Yes, that's exactly it. And so it's telling me to try these things, to try doing it again, to do this, to do that. This will help identify the data is being properly received. So it's not really giving me the fix that I'm looking for. All I need to do here is just wrap this into the string object. And I believe that should fix it. I can copy this code and I can say like explain the highlighted code. This is why when you're using AI tools, large language models, LLMs, GitHub Copilot, it's good to have a foundational knowledge of what you're doing because the tool is essentially making a guess based on its training data set. And so if you're coming in as a software developer, a software engineer, you have that knowledge already to know what to look for when you're validating the code. And that's why we call it a copilot and not the flyer of the plane, right? You're still in charge of making sure that everyone lands safely. All right, so here you see that it's going here and it's explaining every single thing that we're doing. So this string prediction is converting the prediction, likely a NumPy array or a model output, yep, to a string, exactly. And then this is going to split the results into substring using the space as the delimiter instead of that comma that it had in there. That's exactly right. That is exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm going to go back to Bruno. And hopefully it runs this time. And there we go. And so now we have the certainty and the delayed percent being returned from our API. How cool is that? Let's see what's in the chat. So thank you, Natala, for figuring out how to apply the coupon. So it's redeemed in our profile. Great, thank you so much for sharing. I put in farming materials. I love it. Looks like the steps. Okay, noted. Great. Okay, so now that we have our API running and working, super exciting stuff. Look how quickly, though, we were able to iterate on and build an API using GitHub Copilot, right? This is essentially what this tool is here to do with you. It's just to help you go a bit faster, a lot faster, if I do say so myself, in your work. Okay, so now here's what I'm going to do. So this route is complete, but I'm pretty sure there are some things I can do to improve it. For example, there's no there's no validation for my parameters. There's no error handling, so let's ask GitHub Copilot to do some updates for me so I can copy this entire code block. And I can say, right here, you can see it has the context of lines 16 through 34. So I can say, how can I improve this code? And I'm still using Claude here from that option. It tells me that it's using these lines as reference, and now it's going to tell me exactly how I can improve the code. So of course, input validation, error handling, it's going to add some logging, type hints, okay, like integer and all that stuff. It's going to add some documentation or some comments, and it's going to improve my response structure. Amazing. Oof, it made it made the API so much longer, which is fine. It also added some nicely formatted, okay, HTTP status, codes. This is one of the best things I love about whenever I'm working with GitHub Copilot. It always tells me what it did in like a very nicely structured list format at the end. Awesome. So I can actually do two things to accept this. I can use my apply in editor button again, which I love doing, or I can actually open this in what's known as GitHub Copilot edits to edit this file with that. But I'm going to use Copilot edits to create another route. So let's go ahead and use the apply in editor button to make these changes. Amazing. You can see that the code nicely streamed in. So here we have some login, import tuple, dictionary. Interesting. Choice, HTTP status, logging, that basic config. Amazing. And then here we have our updated API, which is a lot longer. So it created a new method called validate inputs in order to validate that the day and the airport are integers right here. And then if it's not, it's going to send back these messages. It's also validating that the day is between 1 and 7 because a week is only 7 days. So that was a really smart move. Thank you. There's also some comments here that tells us, it also has like this here that tells us that this is a dictionary. It went through and it added some HTTP status messages, some nicely formatted error messages. There is a whole bunch of really nice changes going on here that I am appreciative of. It also updated our response to include the day and the airport, which is going to be very useful when you go on to build out the client for this application so that you can say, you can just grab what airport it is and status is success. Okay, great. So let us test out the route to make sure that it's still working. And here you see the new format right here that we just got from GitHub Copilot. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And so before I do a commit, I want to build another route. And I'm going to go ahead and use GitHub Copilot edits to do this. So I can open up Copilot edits by hitting Copilot and then open Copilot edits. And Copilot edits is amazing, and you'll see why. So with GitHub Copilot edits, I can actually see my files being changed in real time. It's pretty incredible. And sometimes if I ask it to do something and the file doesn't exist, it will create that file for me with the necessary code and information that I need. So let's do that right now. So I want to create a route that returns the list of airports. Let me just write that here. So we want to create a route that that returns a list of airports. And I'm going to attach some files to this, right? So to give it the context, right? So I can attach this recently opened file, and I'm also going to attach the airport CSV file that we have. Amazing. And so I'm going to use Claude. I really enjoy using Claude for coding related activities. And then if I'm like trying to reason or get some question answers, I like using GPT-4o for that stuff. So I'm going to choose Claude, and let's send this prompt and see what we get. So again, it's giving us a nice plan. And now it's actually going into my app.py file. Woo! And you saw the responses streamed in. That was so fast. Okay, so you saw the responses streamed in, and it's giving us a highlight of exactly what it changed or updated. And I have my new airport route here, right? And if you notice with this code generation, it's actually following the patterns that we've established in our predict route, which is amazing. So I can accept these changes by clicking that accept button. And now if I go to /airports, I should be able to get the list of airports. So here you see it's using pandas to read the information from the CSV. And then it's going to return all these things, converts it to a dictionary here. Has some exception handling. Amazing, amazing. I mean, this looks good to me. How does it look to you? Let me know what you think, let me know what you think is about all this stuff that's going on here. So to validate that my server is still running. So let's go to Bruno. And I already have this set up here. So it's just /airports. And now we have our airports nicely being returned. Amazing, amazing. So that way, whenever you're going onto the front end or the client of the application, for your drop down, you can just pull in all these airports from the API. Great. Now, the next thing I want to do with you is I want to stage and commit these changes because we just did a whole bunch of stuff, right? So I want to show you something pretty cool. So if I go to source control in Visual Studio Code, and also how cool was Copilot edits? And imagine if you had multiple files. So let's say you had a React front end and it's like pulling information from your Flask backend, and you asked it to do something that affects both the front end and the backend system. GitHub Copilot edits would actually go in there and update both sides of the coin, which is mind-blowing. So right now, let me stage my changes. And after I stage my changes, I can come up here and I can click on this sparkly icon and I can generate a commit message with GitHub Copilot. So once I do boop, you see it gave me a very detailed commit message. It's quite long. I would never have written such a long commit message, but I'm just going to accept it and hit commit. And it looks like I'm on the main branch. Never do this, folks. Let's create a new branch. I'm going to call mine workshop. Awesome. And so all these changes are now in the workshop branch. Great. But yeah, so you can also do commit messages right in VS Code with GitHub Copilot. Now, something that we recently launched is called Copilot Reviews. And with GitHub Copilot Reviews, you can get an initial look of your code or at your code with GitHub Copilot before sending it to your team to be obliterated. So Copilot is here to help you look good whenever you send your code for review. So I can let me highlight this airport route here. And I can click the sparkly icon again. And this sparkly icon appears throughout Visual Studio Code. So be on the lookout for it whenever you're interfacing with it or whenever you're using your editor. Click on review using GitHub Copilot. And it's going to give me a review right in my editor. So it has 3 comments. Okay. So the get airports function lacked detailed parameter documentation. Add param details for better clarity. All right. Parameters, none. I don't think that's necessary. So I'm going to discard it and go to the next one. It says the read CSV method is called without any validation or error handling. For the read CSV itself. Okay. This can lead to issues if the file is missing or corrupted. Wrap the reading code in a try except block to handle potential errors. And just to be completely transparent, this is my very first time using GitHub Copilot edits in Visual Studio Code. So I'm quite impressed with the detailed level of comments and suggestions that it's providing me with. Okay, just for, giggles, I'm going to apply this change that it's suggesting. So I can hit apply. Okay, so I can just apply. And now I have some error handling with the CSV file. very interesting, very interesting stuff we got going on here with GitHub Copilot, right? So the next thing we can do is add some tests. So let me actually stage this again. And I'm gonna use GitHub Copilot edits again to see if it can create some tests for me. Okay, so I'm going to remove the CSV file and I'm going to say add tests for the routes. I'm still gonna keep Claude. I'm going to hit enter, but before I hit enter, I want to show you something else. So if you notice, there's a microphone right here. And I can use my voice with GitHub Copilot to speak to it to do stuff. So because I have this this VS Code speech extension installed, it allows me to just use my voice to interact with GitHub Copilot, which I think is really good for accessibility purposes. And also because sometimes it's just nice to talk when you're working. I do that often whenever I'm writing Markdown files. I like to just talk and have the text-to-speech translation going. It looks like my video is frozen, but I hope you can still hear me. Do let me know if you can still hear me. Not sure what's going on with the video situation today, but let's keep going. So I'm going to use Copilot voice with Copilot to say, add tests for the routes. Okay, let's try again. No. This is how you know it's live, people. It's literally live. I'm not faking this. So let's try again. Add tests for the routes. And there we go. You can talk to GitHub Copilot. How cool is that? But look at this. So it just created a brand new test_app.py file over here. Isn't that amazing? I think that's amazing. And it's generating some test cases with using PyTest for all my routes. And then it's going to tell me everything that this test includes and also tell me how I can run these tests. Now, we're not going to run it today in the interest of time because I'm pretty sure I'll need to debug the tests. But how amazing is this? And no, I've said that so many times because I'm still so fascinated with GitHub Copilot. Every time it does something, I'm just so impressed, especially when I actually comb through it and I see like, wow, you got some skills. But here I have a whole bunch of tests and for like all my routes, for even the home route, the predict route, and the airport route. And the home route is just that basic let's build an API, just to test that it's alive. Amazing. Let's stage it, and also let's do a commit. And of course, you can use Git to do your staging and your committing, but I really just wanted to drive home that you can, get some commits generated with GitHub Copilot. I can actually push this file or publish this file here, and here I can actually create my PR right in the editor, but I'm not going to do that because I want to show you some amazingness on github.com. But did you enjoy the editor aspect of the session? I think it was pretty cool, especially the new Copilot edits section. And if you want to generate tests using GitHub Copilot chat, you can also do that. So we have a bunch of what we call slash commands. And if you do slash tests, you can generate tests for this API. PyTest. Just do the test. What's all these questions? I know I'm having regretto. But you can use this slash command to generate tests. Oh, wait. It's using the context from that file that was open. So it's adding some additional tests needed. Okay, great. So you can also use chat to generate tests. And what I like about chat is right here, it's giving me like additional tests that I can add into my testing file. But typically what I get is like a list of tests, and then I can add those tests to a new file using the dropdown that I showed you, add it to a new file and save it. Amazing. I can also write some documentation. So if I wanted to do a README, for example, let me quickly add a README file here. readme.mc. I can come in here and I can invoke inline chat by hitting Command I, and I can say, create a detailed README for this project. And I can say like based on, and I can attach app.py here. So it has the context of everything I did to create this README. Let's use 4.0 for this to write. And I can send, and it's going to give me a beautiful README for my projects with routes and links and all that stuff. So there's no more excuses for having empty README files. You know what I mean? No more excuses. And this information is all based on all the routes that we just built using GitHub Copilot. All right, so now for real, let's push this up. And I want to show you one of my favorite features on GitHub Copilot on github.com. And it's essentially PR summaries. So let's go to the browser. And you see this beautiful button right here. When I click this and I do summary, I'm expecting a nice summary of all the work that we just did. You can see that we can also get Copilot reviews on github.com. Okay, so that was a very succinct summary. Let's try again. Let me try outline. But you can also get reviews, PR reviews from GitHub Copilot on github.com. The thing with that is, I know sometimes when you get PR reviews from GitHub Copilot on github.com, the reviews will stay there that the AI edited your code and told you to do all these changes. And so I like to do it in VS Code because it's a bit more private. It's a bit more private. It's between me and my AI companion, if that makes sense. But you can also do it right here to get an initial review before you submit your work. And so API and added some tests. I think we also did a README too. Yeah, we did quite a bit of work. And you can see it told us all the things that we did based on our code changes or code diffs. So enhancement of the server application, we added some tests, we had some data updates, and we also did some data modeling, right? And I think that's pretty cool. Do let me know if you have any questions. I'm getting to the point where I'm going to wrap up. There is a lot more I can show you, but in the interest of time, we're just going to go ahead and wrap up. So let me show you one more thing, one or two more things actually. Let's say you're assigned, you got your initial review, you're feeling pretty good about your code, and so you sent it to your coworker, hey, can you please review my code? So your coworker can come in here actually, and they can use GitHub Copilot to review this with them. I think it's like Shift, or is it Command? I never remember. To select the code. And then if I do Copilot, I ask it to explain it. It's using the reference of the file, but this is only that one line. There is a way for me to ask GitHub Copilot right here to help me to review this code in line. I'm not remembering how to do it, but I'm sure there's a video or documentation on GitHub's doc on how you can do that to get that initial jump of a PR review. But if I'm coming into this PR for the first time, it's really not a lot of changes, only 4 file changes, but let's say it's like a bajillion changes. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can ask it to summarize this pull request. Like if it was really massive, sometimes we get those really big pull requests to review. I can ask it to summarize this pull request for me, and it gives me a nicely formatted summary of what's going on here. And this is, I can get more details here. If I am coming to this repository for the first time, I can say, can you tell me about this repository? How do I start using it? Or like if you're using an open source project, for example, and you want to do a contribution, you can probably ask it, what would be a really good issue for me to get started with as a beginner, and all that jazz. It's really here to help you and to enable you to do your best work. You can also use it for general conversation, or what we call general purpose chats. So I can come in here and I can say, can you help me understand logistic regression? If I was studying logistic regression, says, sure, let me help you with that. And so any programming related activity that you're doing, or any programming related work that you're doing, you can use GitHub Copilot to, help you get up to speed, help you go faster, and help you do your best work. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take your questions. This is all I have to share with you today. There is a lot of resources listed in this repository, but one of the most important ones I wanted to share with you was the Copilot Cookbook. And let me just say GitHub Copilot Cookbook. And so the GitHub Copilot Cookbook has a list of example prompts that you can use with GitHub Copilot Chat. So for example, if you wanted to debug invalid JSON, you can see how you can do that here. It has the example scenario, then it had the example prompt and the example response. And just remember that my response and your response may be 2 different responses because of the non-deterministic nature of large language models. So if it doesn't look like the example response here, fear not. Just validate the information, validate the code, validate the output to make sure that it's correct, because there are many ways to do the same thing. But yeah, let me know if you have questions. You can also find a lot of resources on the GitHub blog. If you search for GitHub Copilot, I've written quite a few articles myself on GitHub Copilot. Here you see how to generate unit tests with GitHub Copilot, tips and examples. So there is a lot of resources here at GitHub that you can take advantage of. Thanks for joining. Remember to go to the repository, which is here. Oh my gosh. Which is here, gh.io/createherfest. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you so much, Kedasha. This was really an incredible session. The musical touches in your presentation added really, such a personal and unique element that it really made the experience unforgettable. There are a few
Yeah.
questions asked by the participants, but before we move on to the Q&A, I would like to share the feedback survey link. Uh, Guys, please don't forget to fill out the survey form. It really helps us a lot. There is one question I have myself, like what resources would you suggest for someone just getting started with GitHub Copilot?
That is an excellent question. The resources I would suggest on just getting started with GitHub Copilot is Visual Studio Code actually has a lot of content that helps you get up and ready with GitHub Copilot. And if you go on the GitHub blog, actually, there's a blog post that I wrote a few years ago. few years ago, maybe like a year or two ago, on how you can build like a full project with GitHub Copilot, that would be a really good place to start. And just so you know, I'm currently in the process of working on a GitHub for Beginners series, or GitHub for Beginners Copilot Edition series with the team. And so that will be launching next year. And so that will definitely be the place to go, because there'll be like detailed videos and there'll be blog posts, there'll be projects for you to do to really get you up to speed with GitHub Copilot. But for now, check out the GitHub blog, look at the VS Code team's YouTube videos and documentation. And also, you know, a lot of times the DevRel team at GitHub we post on our LinkedIn about things we're doing with GitHub Copilot to teach you how to use it. So also make sure you're following us on LinkedIn and follow me on Insta, because I post content there as well.
That's great. Thanks. Another question is, as GitHub Copilot evolves, what new features or improvements do you think will have the biggest impact on the developers?
That will have an impact on the developers.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I showed you a lot of new features today, which showed the true evolution of GitHub Copilot. So GitHub Copilot started as a auto completion tool in your editor, right? And now we have a chat tool, and within chat, we have slash commands, we have extensions. And so extensions are a way for you to use third-party applications to interface with them that way. So for example, there's a Docker extension or a Docker agent that you can say, hey Docker, how can I build a dev container with my project or with my project? Or hey Docker, can you tell me about this particular SHA ID? So like you can ask it questions right there within GitHub Copilot. And we also just released, or it's currently in, I think like private beta or something, GitHub Copilot edits, which allows you to not just interact or chat with GitHub Copilot, it allows GitHub Copilot to help you to do the work that much faster. You just saw it create that testing file that I didn't have, and then it gave me that whole list of tests. You saw it go into my file and like created my route for me right there that I can accept and then validate the code and go through it. You saw it help me to explain terminal commands. So like we have honestly released a lot of exciting features this year that I would love for you to dig into. And what's coming up next, I'm sure you will love it as well. I can't disclose.
I would love some inside information, but I understand. Okay, the another question is, what was most surprising function of Copilot which helped you during your everyday workflow?
Ooh, the most surprising function of GitHub Copilot that helps me during my everyday workflow. Honestly, it's GitHub Copilot Chat. I have to give Chatty its credit. I call it Chatty my bestie. That's not the official name, but I call it Chatty my bestie because you know a lot of time when you're working, you kind of get blocked. I know, like I get stuck in my head about like those little implementation details. Like even planning for this workshop, I have like very detailed notes. It's kind of how I think and how I process and how I plan things. And so even like building stuff, I'm always planning stuff, writing out everything. And if I miss a detail, I'm just like, oh, I cannot do it. But with GitHub Copilot Chat, I am able to like get out of my head a lot faster and actually focus on the functionality and the experience of the user instead of getting bogged down with like, oh my gosh, what about this? What about this? What about this? I can have that conversation with Chatty instead of like having that conversation with myself in my head.
That's great. The last question for today is like, can you share an example of a challenging problem where GitHub Copilot exceeded your expectations?
Yes. So some time ago, and let me actually find the article. This is the first one that popped in my head, so it was the one I'm going to be sharing. So some time ago, we had an issue internally where we have a public repository where folks are able to open up issues for a show that we have, which is my camera's gone again. For a show that we have called Open Source Friday. And the open source Friday repository was receiving a lot of spam invites or spam issues by one particular person. And one day I got really annoyed and I went with GitHub Copilot and I was able to bulk close 1,000 issues and also implement some custom GitHub actions to kind of sort of prevent it from ever happening again. So like that was the most surprising thing I've done with GitHub Copilot to date, and like I'm still so impressed that the tool was able to help me to do all that jazz. And there's the link to the blog post that I wrote.
I
What's
can't even
going
believe like
on?
1,000 open GitHub.
Over 1,000 open issues. So
That's,
like imagine we were going in and like manually closing everything.
wow,
And it was quite annoying and it was quite frustrating.
that's crazy. That really, shows us how GitHub Copilot can do so much. And, honestly, it has opened eyes for, the untapped potential of GitHub Copilot.
Exactly, exactly. There was another one where like I debugged my deployment workflow with GitHub Copilot. In the end, it wasn't fixed, but I did learn a lot of lessons where like it's always important to use the tools you have and to kind of try to go to GitHub Copilot. Going to GitHub Copilot first to help me with debugging really taught me a lot of lessons that I also wrote about in that blog post.
Definitely.
Camera, please. Any any questions about the workshop that we did today? If not live, you can send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer any questions there. But yeah,
Yeah. Are there any more questions? You can share them with us in the chat as well. Please
please.
mention the content.
Content. Yes. So if you go to gh.io, I'm going to pop it here, gh.io, and it's slash create her best. That will take you to the repository. And within the repository, there are detailed instructions on how to build the model, how to build the API, and also how to build the front end of the application. That you can go through. And there are also a lot of resources linked to teach you additional information that you want to know about GitHub Copilot.
Great. I think we can wrap up the session now. I just want to mention again that your insights and the hands-on experience, hands-on guidance that you've shared with us. At least I am feeling really confident about using Copilot in the future for sure.
Yay!
Thanks to everyone who joined us today. Thank you so much for showing your enthusiasm and participation. We hope you're leaving with valuable knowledge and some fresh ideas to take your coding productivity to the next level. Let's all show our appreciation for Kedasha with a virtual round of applause. If you want, you can drop some clapping emojis or quick thank you in the chat, or even unmute briefly to share your appreciation. Thank you, Kedasha, for sharing your expertise with us. And thank you all for being such an amazing audience. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye. Thank you. This